Iremihi andri keria shoria tahmandria she. Yara hamakia patashe tahama rohomikia tamanti shiria handriatai. We bless you this day and we worship you, God. We proclaim your word and your truth throughout the whole earth so all men might know and understand and fear you. You're listening to Everyday Christianity. I'm your host, Greg Malone. You can contact me through my website, www.malonegreg.com. That's www.malonegreg, all one word, .com. You can also get in touch with me through my phone at 315-744-0007. You can text me or call and leave a message. I'll get right back to you. I'm continuing on in the episode here of Everyday Christianity. We're just beginning the book of Exodus. We finished the book of Genesis. We're now working in Matthew and Exodus. And we're seeing the Israelites being oppressed here in Exodus chapter 1. So let's begin to read in verse 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died, but the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. So we see more of the blessing of God upon his people, his chosen people, and we see them prospering in the land of Goshen. Continuing on in verse 8, then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So we see this Pharaoh was obviously a good warrior and a good strategizer. He was also very corrupt and absolutely immoral in his thought processes, obviously. So he sees that the Israelites are becoming very strong because they're being blessed by God. And we know throughout history and through God's word that anyone that comes against his nation, Israel, will be put to flight and will be destroyed. And here we see this happening once again. This is the start of it. And there are so many places in the Bible that I'm seeing now that I'm involved in the abortion debate where killing of unborn children or just born children or infanticide in the Bible is so common. It just blows my mind. And it says this thought had never even entered into the mind of God, that people would kill babies and would just destroy them. But anyway, we're going to find out some more about that here in this chapter 1 of Exodus. So there's too many of them, and he's worried about military conquest if there is war. Then the king, verse 11. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. So you see the same thing that happened here happened in Europe during the Nazi Holocaust when they were taken into forced labor at that time also. And this is a repeating theme with the children of Israel and Jewish people in particular, in that they have been conquered many, many times because they went into sin, and God allowed them to be under taskmasters for a period of time so that they would learn to follow him. And again, over and over again, we see this throughout the Bible. It's a theme. It's also a theme in our lives. This isn't just the nation Israel. This is a type of us. And Exodus is a type of our lives with God. And the symbolism is very great, and we will be getting into a lot of that with the symbolism in Exodus, like with them leaving Egypt is a type of our leaving our sin life and salvation and passing through the waters, and a type of our baptism, and then wandering in the desert, a type of our journey in Christ, and then entering the promised land, a type of our entering into the fullness of what God would have us to do. There's so many other things, even prior to the Exodus and them leaving the actual land, is them being oppressed and under hard taskmasters here in Exodus chapter 1 is a type of us in our sin lives, and we're bound, we're trapped by sin prior to becoming children of the great King who is Jesus Christ. So getting back to this in Exodus chapter 1, so we see here that in verse 11, he puts masters over them, and they built Pithom and Ramses. And the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. Notice they dreaded them. They worked them because of fear, because they were afraid of them, because of the way that they were prospering and were growing. Okay, so they because of the dread, they worked them ruthlessly. Verse 14, they made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar, and with all kinds of work in the fields. In their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. So we see that they were used in brick and mortar production. Obviously, we see in Egypt, even to this day, in the modern day time, that the brick and mortar work that was done in Egypt was fantastic. And we see this was accomplished mostly through slave labor. Remember, because of an Israelite, Joseph, Egypt became fiercely strong and the most powerful nation in the world because of its financial wealth. They owned everything pretty much in the known world at that time, in their locale where the famine was taking place. They had all the money, they had all the land, and they had future money going forward that was going to be theirs because of the shrewd business dealings that God worked through Joseph and bringing this great wealth into the land of Egypt. So we see here that the king of Egypt now hatches another plan to take care of the children of Israel. First of all, he tries to control them through slave labor and working them very hard. And then he says, I've got another idea. Let's start killing them. And who does he start killing? The strong? No. This guy starts to think, hey, let's start killing the babies. I wonder where this idea came from. Well, it was originally hatched by Satan, I assure you, to kill small children. That has been something that he just enjoys hurting the heart of God, and I'm sure here in this case he's wanting to hurt the heart of God also by making systematic slaughter of the children of Israel a part of what his business model is for his country. Let's look at verse 15. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it's a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? So we see a king ordering the killing of babies using his power as a governmental organization. What other parallels can we draw to the United States and other countries of the world that allow abortion? We can see very clearly where the leadership, and even the presidential or king or whatever of the country, is allowing this to take place through edict. And he's basically telling the midwives, in this case, to kill the children and not let them to live, the boys, not letting them to live. And so he makes his plan up, and he gets Shiphrah and Puah and to try to help him to do this. And they see it's a horrible thing, a horrible order. They're not going to do it, so they find a way around it. And these two women are two of the best examples of abortion fighters, and what they did is two of the best examples of how to overcome improper edict, and that is to ignore it and to actively take action against it. And I think that we should be doing that as Christians. We should not be allowing the sin of abortion to stand and to continue, and we should be actively acting out against it. So he brings them in. He says, you're not killing the boy babies. Why have you done this? Why are you letting them live? Verse 19, the midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So we're seeing here a little bit about the health condition of the Egyptian women. They weren't as vigorous. They were probably of the type of the aristocracy women of the European and English aristocracy, where the women were very pampered, very kept, and they did no real physical labor, and they obviously were a lot weaker than the Israeli or women here, who are obviously more vigorous. And they said in verse 20, so basically they gave birth before the midwives came, at least that's what they're saying. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. And so, or basically a place of their own or land of their own. So here we have two heroes of the abortion movement, Shiphrah and Puah, or the anti-infanticide movement we see here. These two women, I want a t-shirt that says Shiphrah and Puah are my heroes. I think it would be a good conversation starter that Shiphrah and Puah are the greatest initial fighters against abortion and infanticide on the face of the earth. Two true heroes of how to deal with corrupt government and their edicts. So God blessed them, and then verse 22. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. So this guy is obviously just bent on evil and destroying this nation of Israel and keeping them as weak and as in check as he possibly can. Their population growth has not grown to the point. I wonder why he just didn't attack them and overthrow them. Probably because he didn't want war within his own borders, I would imagine. But he decided to kill the weakest, the babies, the children, and in order that the babies be thrown into the Nile. And what a corrupt and evil practice this was. Well, I pray that God has blessed you through this study here today in Exodus chapter 1. And may God also bless you this week. Remember that the power of life and death is in the tongue. Choose life.